Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming out today. I'm really grateful that folks came out to listen to the two speakers today. Again, I have to remember to keep my hands from over there. My name is Belinda Wilkerson, and I'm going to talk to you today a little bit about my business. And by way of introduction, I really need to tell you what my story is. This is a very favorite poem of mine. It was something that I learned early, probably in elementary school. And it really is about what does happen when a dream is deferred. And with what's going on in Baltimore now, we really get to see what happens. So this is, by way of introduction, I just want to tell you what my dream is and how I got to be where I am today. So keep this poem in mind. So my dream, kind of jumping in the middle of it, kind of started when I was in the 8th grade. This is a picture of me, 8th grade, Providence, Rhode Island. One of 2 African-American students who was in the top-ranked academic class. Had straight A's, good student always. My school counselor that year had us write a paper on what we wanted to be when we grew up. I always knew I was going to be a teacher, that I was going to be an educator. That's what I wrote my paper on. In our conversation, he said to me, the paper I received an A on, by the way, he said, "This is great, good work, what have you, but your people don't go to college." That's wrong. He said, "What you should think about is being like Mrs. Varela, who was our secretary in the office." And I remember taking that in, thinking about it. I said, yeah, all right, I'm still going to be a teacher, regardless. Good. So this is a story about my journey to where I am today. So with that in mind, high school graduation, knew I was going to be a teacher, was fortunate enough to get a 4-year scholarship to go to Rhode Island College, where I went and got a bachelor's degree, secondary education, with a concentration in history. I wasn't wearing my glasses then because I was trying to be cute. Couldn't see.
Well, you were cute.
Thank you, thank you. This is graduation from Rhode Island College. So I did go on. My dream was continuing. In between this picture and the next one I'm going to show you, I went on to become a social studies teacher. I taught at East Providence, in the East Providence school system in Rhode Island for a number of years. Taught middle and high school social studies. Then I went on and got my master's as a school counselor. In between that bachelor's and master's, I had the privilege to go back to that school where that school counselor was working, or where he had worked. I was working as a substitute for a 5th grade class. So after I had taken the class to lunch, I said, I wonder if he's still here. So I asked about him, and they said, oh, he's still here. He's now the director of guidance. I said, really? Let me go see him. So I went to visit him. And the thing is, this was something that I really didn't know had stayed with me like that. So I went to see him, and he was in his office, and I'm introducing myself to him. He goes, okay, so he's trying to remember who I am. I said, remember me? I was in Mrs. Ketevis' homeroom with Julius, and I'm naming all the kids. He goes, yeah, what are you doing here? I said, I'm subbing. I said, I have my degree, and I'm just waiting to get a full-time job, and I owe it all to you. And I let him feel good for about 3 seconds. And I said, because you told me that my people didn't go to college. Not only do we go, but we graduate. Now I'm in a master's program for school counseling. I'm not coming back to get your job. And I okay? So in talking to friends about that, who had the same counselor, some of them had received those same messages, and they internalized it. They ended up living that message. I chose not to. My mother tells me that I'm stubborn and bullheaded. I'm a lot like her, so that's what I decided to do. In between getting, I don't have a picture up here of me graduating with my master's because I was 2 weeks away from delivering my first son, and I just didn't feel like walking down the aisle with that belly and the whole cap and gown and stuff. But one of my big dreams was always to go back to school and get that terminal degree. And I finally decided to do that at the advanced age of 50 plus. I think it was like 53, 55, something when I went back to school. This is me in one of my cohorts who, God, we spent a lot of nights up late writing, trying to figure out, and this was all done working full-time, also teaching, also taking care of your household. By this time, I went on to become, I did the teaching as a history teacher. Then I went on to become a high school counselor, did that for a number of years. Then I was recruited by Providence College to run a statewide school counseling project. So I was the director of the Rhode Island School Counseling Project, and what I did is the professional development for all the school counselors in the state of Rhode Island. So that was a dream come true. That was a job that I absolutely loved. Ended up moving to Fayetteville because my husband's from Fayetteville, wanted to move back to his home. So I had to reinvent myself and figure out what I was going to do. So I ended up starting this business, and I'll talk to you a little bit about this business so you can see what it is I do. But as we go through this, keep this in mind. This woman, Rita Pearson, did a wonderful TED Talk. If you ever get the opportunity, Google her name, watch her TED Talk. Unfortunately, about 3 to 4 months after she did this TED Talk, she passed away. But it's so inspirational, and I just think about every day, because this is really what's going on with our kids. They need to know that somebody believes in it, and I think I do that a lot through my business. So what I do is college admission counseling. So I took my background as a school counselor and a counselor educator, because I also taught at Providence College for 6 years in their counselor education program. And I said, what is it that I want to do with all of this knowledge, skills, and experience that I have? And I also decided I didn't want to go back into the public schools. I'm not really a fan of how public schools treat teachers, so I decided I didn't want to go back into that environment anymore. So what I did is I started a business as an independent educational consultant. So what I do is I work with students on searching, selecting, and transitioning college. And what I try to do is to start with, so this graphic is representative. If I start with a student in 9th grade, we're going to be talking about their classes, extracurricular stuff, we're doing career assessments, we're having college conversations that are developmentally appropriate for somebody at 9th grade. Each year, it expands. So from 9th grade to 10th grade to 11th grade to 12th grade. I follow my students through their first semester in college because I want to know that they made that transition. I want to get the feedback on what is it that I did with them that maybe would help somebody else. What was missing? What was it that they thought they needed to know that they didn't get? So I do a lot of work that way. When talking with students, we're talking about all aspects of applying to college. But in addition to that, I bring a lot of my school counseling background into that. So as a school counselor, we were charged with looking after the academic, social, and the career aspect of students. So I bring a lot of that into that. So when I'm talking with my students, we're talking about not only about applying to college, but staying in college, graduating from college. How are we going to pay for this? How do we even start looking for scholarships? What's the criteria for scholarships? What are the financial aid forms that have to be filled out? Looking at deadlines, looking at essays, making sure that their essays are addressing the prompts, making sure that every piece of the application process is taken care of. So we spend a lot of time together. When I first start working with students, if I'm working with them from grades 9 to 11, we meet at least monthly, once a month, face-to-face. Now, some of my students I work with virtually. So we'll work on Skype or Google Hangouts. I have students in Virginia, Georgia, and Rhode Island also. So we work virtually. So once they hit the summer of their senior year, we're meeting weekly. It's a weekly meeting because now we have things that we need to do. This is the application process. This is the piece where we have to make sure all those deadlines are being met, all those essays are being written, they're getting their recommendations in, and they're dotting all their I's and crossing all their T's. One of the this is my cat Grace. She helps me out a lot when I'm doing work. But one of the activities that I do with my kids in talking about what is it that you're looking for in a college, we do this card sort. So what they do is they have a pack of cards. It's probably about 101 cards in there. And they sort these different factors into, do I really want this? Do I don't care? No way. And then there's a wild card where they can create their own category. From that, we'll look at where they place those different options, and we'll talk about it. So if somebody says to me, oh, I want to go into medicine, but then they put chemistry in the no way category, we need to have a conversation about that. Okay, so we're going to have to talk about that. And I do this every year with students because as they learn more about themselves and learn more about the college experience, those options may change for them. They may shift into other categories. So one of the things we do is one of these activities. It's really important for me to frame everything with my students under the umbrella of life career development, because everything they're doing affects their life. What kind of career you have will depend upon what your family life may be like, what kind of housing you may have, what kinds of vacations your family may take, what kind of experiences you will have. All of us in this room are constantly under the umbrella of life career development. We're always doing something that's enhancing our lives. So kids need to think about that. The choices they're making are going to be lifelong decisions. It's not a one-shot deal saying, okay, I'm going to be a teacher and that's it. I don't have to think about my career anymore. That's not true. You're constantly going to be upgrading your skills. You're constantly going to be looking to see, is this something else that I might want to do? The skills I have now transferable into another position, another career. So we're looking at, is this 4-year college for you, or should you start at a 2-year college? Should you go to a technical school? Maybe you should go to the military if that's your interest. What we're starting to see a lot of now is that some kids are starting to take what we call gap years, where they're taking time off between high school and starting college. This is very big in Europe, and it's starting to really come into the United States. So we have these conversations, but we do it all under the umbrella of life career development. And with my students, one of the assessments, several assessments I do, we're doing interest inventories. We're looking at aptitudes. We're looking at skills. And we're evaluating these constantly, because it's really important for kids to do this. Now, as a school counselor, we used to do a lot of these career assessments, so we would give them to the kids, but our time in the day didn't allow us to do a lot of the follow-up. So with this business, working with students individually, I have more than enough time to do the necessary follow-up that needs to be. Sometimes my kids think I do too much follow-up, but they do a lot of follow-up. And I say to them, you know, my background is as a teacher, so you get homework, and I expect you to do it. And if you don't do it, I'm not calling your mother. I'm going right to you, because when my kids work with me, they have to sign the contract also. They have to understand that this is a binding contract, and my expectations are that you're going to take care of business. And I'll give you a quick example. One of my kids, we do, sometimes I do practice SATs with them, or ACTs, depending upon what they need. So we did a practice ACT. She emailed me maybe about 3 weeks ago. She wanted to do a practice SAT. And I said, okay, have you finished that other assessment for me? Well, no, I haven't done that yet. I said, well, when you finish that, then we move on to the next part. So she's like, oh, well, can't we? No, that's not how it works. So she's still working on it. She hasn't done her practice SAT yet, but we'll get to it. But it'll be up to her. I'm going to give you a quick case study. This is one of my students, and she gave me permission to use her photo. Her name is Ashanti. She just finished her first year at Hampton University. We started working together when she was a junior in high school. Ashanti ended up graduating with a 4.0. She was president of her National Honor Society at her high school. She was at Reed Ross. We did a lot of work around her essay writing, looking at applications. She pretty much knew she wanted to go to Hampton, but it was, okay, we need to also have a backup plan. So she really only applied to 3 colleges. It was probably the least amount of colleges any student I've worked with lately has applied to. One young lady I worked with recently, who's an international student, she applied to 19 colleges.
Wow, that's a lot of work.
a lot of work. She's an international student. She's Chinese national, but she's been in a boarding school since she's been in the 7th grade in Georgia. Only child, full pay, so she could afford to pay all those high application fees that are out there. She's actually going to UC Berkeley. She got in, so that's going to be her school. So with Ashanti, we did a lot of work, like I said, around filling out the application, talking about it. But one of the interesting things with Ashanti, this is where you can't just think about the academic part of the student. You also have to look at the social part. She was an only child, very sheltered. She is an only child, very sheltered. And the whole idea of going to college out of state, as it started getting closer, really started, those nerves started kicking in, started second guessing herself. So we started having a lot of conversations over how to make friends, how to acclimate to a new environment and stuff. So a lot of our work started being around there. Ashanti hadn't stayed home alone by herself since she was in high school. She just had this fear of staying home alone. So we started doing these little apps that, okay, after our meeting, I'm gonna drop you off. You're gonna go in the house, it's daytime, you're gonna stay in there by yourself, and you're gonna be okay. And so we were doing things that normally you wouldn't do, but it would be something that I might do as a school counselor. So we were bringing a lot of that in. This is actually a picture that I took with Ashanti on her campus. One of the things I have to do with our professional associations, for part of our professional development, I'm required to visit at least 25 campuses a year. So it just happened that her campus was on one of the tours that I was taking. So I'm texting her, I'm like, the bus is pulling in, where are you? Because I had to be somewhere, she had to get to class. So we had about 10 minutes together. It's really great to go on and say, Ashanti, her first semester she had straight A's. Her second semester she got her first B, and almost fell apart, but she did good. She was recently accepted into the Honors College at Hampton, and she'll be starting her sophomore year come the end of August. So this is really good. A couple of other students that I've worked with this year, one of my students, I picked him up late in his senior year. He was a recruited athlete, so he's did receive a full scholarship. So, but I'm still waiting to see the money part. They said, he did the national letter of intent, so we're still waiting on that. These are just some pictures of different tours that I've been on. Castleton, laying on the beanbag, the Castleton Library, Castleton College in Vermont. That's at High Point University, on one of their park benches where they have these life-size statues, that's Rosa Parks. And Scripps College in California, which is part of the Claremont Colleges Consortium, 5 colleges that are together. I have a website, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Pinterest. So you can find me any way that you need to find me. And now let's open it up to questions. Yes.
What advice do you give to students who, obviously a community college is less expensive, but there are a lot of scholarships that are no longer available once you're no longer a freshman.
Right.
So the parents I'm sure are weighing, okay, should we go for the iffy scholarships we may or may not get enough, or just go to the community college and save a lot of money?
I think the first thing everyone has to understand, because people talk about financial aid and they're all, okay, there's all this financial, I'm going to get a scholarship. The basic premise is that families are going to contribute something to college. And a lot of times, and everyone needs to understand that loans will be part of the package. That's just the way it is these days. It's a family decision, so what my job to do is to lay out all the options for them, to show them what it would look like if you went to a community college and then transferred, and what it would look like if you start off at a 4-year school. And it all depends on what the 4-year school is that you're going to, because each school gives a certain amount of financial aid, and you have to know what percentage of need that particular school meets. Like Duke meets 100% of need, but you've got to get into Duke. Elon meets 57% of your needs. So you already know there's going to be a gap there. So you have to decide whether or not you can afford that. One of the nice things about the community college system in North Carolina If you do really well and you've applied through the C-STEP program, then you can go to UNC Chapel Hill. That's automatic admission if you meet the criteria. But I tell students, once you get into college, you need to make sure that you're paying attention to what those departmental scholarships may be for whatever you're going to major in, because that's where most of the money's going to take place then within that department. And there are grade criteria, so that means you can't go in there half-step and get C's. You know, you've got to be at the top of your game if you want to be able to be eligible for those scholarships. Other questions?
I think what you're doing is fantastic. I appreciate it so much because my husband was a guidance counselor, and I know that the school systems, the kids are burdened, and a lot of parents don't know the game of how to, you know, they need a coaching themselves. Do you work with parents as well? And how did you develop your fee schedule?
Okay. I do work with parents because when I start working with a student, I'm working with the family, because making a college decision, with as much as college costs you, that's a family decision. So we have to have those conversations, because sometimes families, parents may have a notion of what school they want their students to go to. You know, people get into the name schools, and the name schools may not be the right fit for that student. So we have to get past that. In developing my fee schedule, actually I did a lot of market research when I moved here to see what other consultants in the area were charging, and then looking at that in comparison to Fayetteville to see what the market in Fayetteville would bear. I was also lucky because one of my friends, actually my friend that was in that doctoral picture with me, she was teaching at Johnson & Wales, and her class had to do a project. So they actually did a lot of my market research for me. That was part of their project. So they looked at a lot of the, because consulting, independent consulting is a pretty widespread business across the United States. And so they looked at what other companies that they could get the information from were doing in the North Carolina area. So I based my fees on that. So I have a per session fee, then I have a package fee if you take 5 sessions or 10 sessions, and then there's a comprehensive fee. So if a student signs on with me in 9th grade, that fee carries right through that first semester.
Okay, because you said you could go from 9th grade to
Yes.
into college, and then you had one that you started late in your senior year.
Yeah, so it depends on when they start with me
Right.
and what their needs are. Like a parent may just say, we just want to do essay prep, essay help. So they just might buy a smaller package.
I see.
Yes. Yes.
How do clients find you?
Clients find
How
me.
do you get them?
How do I get them? It's been by word of mouth. I do a lot of advertising through Facebook. I just recently started doing radio spot on 98, on Q98, so that runs on Sundays between 12 and 8. I've done some print advertising, but most of it has been by word of mouth, but I'm looking to step up my marketing in a different way so that I can get it out. So that's one of the things where you guys are going to come in, because you're going to help get the word out for me. You're going to go on my Facebook page, and you're going to like my Facebook page. You're going to share my posts on Facebook. You're going to sign up for my electronic newsletter that you're going to now send out to other people. So I'm going to use you guys also.
Yes, teacher.
Yes.
That's a no-brainer.
Yes. Other questions?
When you go through that card process with a student, do you tell them, do you ever have students that you say, college is not for you, you should go be an apprentice with somebody and be an entrepreneur? Do you suggest that all of them go to college?
Since I started this particular business, I haven't run into that, but as a high school counselor, that did happen where we had to have those hard conversations about, are you ready for college? Are you college material? Let's look at what it is you can do instead, because when a student left the high school, they needed to have a plan. And we had to have that conversation. I was lucky in that I had my kids in high school from 9th grade through 12th grade. So we were always working on that plan. What is it that you're going to do? We can't wait until your senior year to decide, oh, I need to figure out what I'm going to do. So we were having that plan. So if it was an apprenticeship program, if it was a technical school, that's where they were being steered with the help of their parents, with their parents understanding that that was in the child's best interest. But ultimately, the families make the decision.
Very valuable information.
Yes.
That's one thing that's always kind of dismayed me. I taught for years in the Chicago public schools, and there was a push, they took all vocational training out of the schools. They no longer had wood shop, they no longer had auto shop, home ec was completely, and they were pushing everyone toward college. And I spoke out against that, because not every kid is college material. Some people are intelligent with their hands, and some people make great auto mechanics, plumbers, and electricians.
Make good money doing it.
But by cutting out all vocational education at the high school level, the kids weren't even exposed to that as an option. So do you work with kids on that and maybe tell them?
I do. One of the things that, like I said, that was fortunate with my background at my high school, we also had a pretty vibrant career and technical part of our school. And I worked a lot with the career and technical teachers. So I will definitely push kids toward that. I mean, I tell kids about some of the programs that are here at FTCC that might be more appropriate for them. You know, especially if they expressed an interest in something. I said, well, have you checked out this program? You need to go get the information. Sometimes they even bring the information to them. Because I volunteer over at the East Regional Library with the teen group over there on Tuesdays. It's called Chillax. So I do informal college counseling with them as part of my community service. So there's one student now who's actually, he has applied to FTCC. And, you know, I'm on him getting all his paperwork in and stuff. So hopefully that's going to work out for him.
Belinda, besides liking you on Facebook, signing up for your newsletter, what else you gotta do? Tweet.
Yeah.
What else can this community do for you?
One of the other things you can do, I'm always looking for opportunities to speak to any organizations or community groups, including churches. So if you know that of someone that is looking for a speaker to come in and give an overview of college admissions and some of the trends that are taking place, send them my way. Yes.
I'll do that. I'm in the local Kiwanis Club.
Thank you.
We're always looking for
I
speakers.
would love that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.